When a player moves to a club for 60 million euros and doesn't perform immediately, eyebrows reach for the sky. Why him? The player is mocked, told to leave, and filled with self-doubt. That right there describes Raphinha at FC Barcelona for the first 2 years. Yet, somehow, he went from that to scoring hat-tricks against Bayern Munich, scoring and assisting versus Real Madrid, and becoming maybe the most informed player on the planet. Before this season, people were wearing his current shirt number and Nico Williams' name. Fast forward to now, over 20 goal contributions and counting, less than a quarter of the way through the season, and all those detractors have been pretty quiet lately. Hello everyone, hope you're well, welcome back. Born in Porto Alegre, Brazil in 1997, it's a wonder he made it this far. In a now 3 years old Players Tribune post, he referenced remembering how it felt to walk the streets after training and ask people if they had any food he could eat. Covered in mud, sweating, out of breath, he recalls people passing by being afraid of his physical appearance when he would approach them. People would drive or walk past him like he wasn't even there. He was a talented footballer, and all he wanted to do was join an academy to hopefully get an allowance to help take care of his family. But no academy would take him on, and an increasing number of his friends were turning to the drug world to help their families. Raphinha was close to doing the same. Instead, he persisted and essentially played amateur football, known as football de vage, directly translated to floodplain football, until he was about 18 years old. This can be described as a network of matches set up by local communities that can, I guess in a way, somewhat be likened to Sunday League if you just want to think grassroots football, but it also wasn't like that at all. No contracts, no bibs, anyone can show up on any day to participate, and often those who show up are the ones rejected from academies, and the conditions of these matches were less than ideal. In the same Players Tribune post, he describes these tournaments as the Wild West. You play on clay, burning heat, dust and sand. Someone will bring a ball from home. These players are the rejects, man. They play with anger. They play to survive. They play like their lives depend on it. You would often see the bosses in the community stand around the pitch with guns. You could be about to score when a random gunshot would go off. But eventually, his talents were recognized and he was signed by Avaí. The ball began to roll and pick up more and more momentum as he was then scouted by Deco and joined Vitória Guimarães in Portugal in 2016. 2 years later, he transferred to Sporting. 2 years after that, to Rennes. Another 2 years, Leeds. And finally, 2 years after that, FC Barcelona. He is currently in his 3rd season with Barca. An inspiring story for sure, but at this point, I think we all have the same question in mind. Why all the fuss? What's so good about him? Speed, intensity, versatility, and dedication. I'm not going to sit here and pretend as if Raphinha's always been as good as he currently is. That just wouldn't be true. But no one can deny that he hasn't exhibited all 4 of those characteristics that I just said throughout his entire journey. They are what's gotten him to where he's at today, while he works on all the other aspects that he's lacking in. When Raphinha was at Leeds, he built up a reputation of being lightning fast, able to score a goal, and genuinely giving his all for the team. In a Marcelo Bielsa squad renowned for its high-tempo approach, though not always successful approach, Raphinha was maybe the prime example of what it meant to play this way. For those reasons, he's remembered very fondly in Leeds. I mean, it helps that he's pretty much the main reason that they stayed up in the Premier League in 2022. He scored 11 goals and 3 assists throughout that campaign, contributing to about 33% of the goals that they scored there. And when you factor in that they survived by 3 points after winning on the final day, a game that he scored in, by the way, I'll let you all guess how the people of Leeds really feel about him. All the same, I'll be completely honest and expose myself here. I wasn't entirely convinced that he was a proper big club player at the time, when he left Leeds at least. Like, yeah, great player, sure, but I don't know, I thought that he was a bit clumsy at times, a bit of a head down and press kind of player. He wasn't really quick with his feet in tight spaces, and for all the goals that he scored, he did miss a lot of opportunities. Obviously, these were just the signs of a player in development. My judgment was too narrow. I say that because it looked like Arsenal or Chelsea would win his signatures. They were very interested. But then, Barcelona came calling. And we all know what happens in the minds of any given Brazilian when Barcelona comes calling. Fun fact, Raphinha's father was a samba musician and performed at one of Ronaldinho's birthday parties when he was still a Barcelona player. Raphinha was there and even met the man. They're now friends. Oh, friend! In his first season with Barcelona, that was 2022-23, the opinions surrounding Raphinha pretty much seemed to mirror the sentiment that I just threw out. Long story short, good, but not good enough. But it's important that we understand that there were a lot of reasons for this, and most of them weren't actually his fault. For starters, we have the dumpster fire that is Barcelona's public image over the last few years. Everything from the finances to the allegations of paying referees, regardless of whatever the truth is, they've taken a PR hit. Even the best players on the pitch were caught up in the crossfire. The second of which is the system that Xavi was playing him in. 10 goals in all competitions in both of his first 2 seasons with the club isn't too bad, if you ask me, especially for a winger. And most would agree that he was a solid option for being on the end of attacking plays. But that's not how Xavi wanted to use him. Raphinha, for the most part in his career, has played as a right-sided winger. It makes sense because he is a left-footed player and he has all the attributes that I just mentioned. What Xavi wanted from his wide men was constant width, for them to stay very, very far out wide to isolate them and give them the maximum amount of space for them to take a defender on 1v1 and go past them to go towards goal or go towards the line and cut back. The only thing is that Raphinha, for all his great traits, he isn't the best dribbler. Sure, he's functional, but he's not the greatest. I wouldn't say that he's good enough for you to rely upon his dribbling as a main characteristic of your attack. And his numbers back this up. In 2022-23, in his first season, he was in the 50th percentile for successful take-ons in La Liga per 90, only getting past his man 43% of the time. Compare that to a guy like Ousmane Dembele, who is obviously no saint, but who I think nobody can deny is a technical genius when his body allows him to be on the pitch for more than a couple of seconds. He was healthy at the start of this video actually, but his knee, it just couldn't take the pressure. In 2022-23, he was only slightly better at around a 46% success rate, but he also tried to go past players significantly more than Raphinha, and also successfully went past players almost double the amount of times as Raphinha. It's just the way he plays. And Dembele, who was also a left-footed right winger, was pretty much preferred by Xavi from the get-go, and for good reason too. I don't think you'll find many compelling arguments that Dembele isn't a objectively better right winger, pure right winger, than Raphinha is when fit. Ironically, from what it seems, Raphinha was brought in to replace Dembele as Barcelona were convinced he already had an agreement with another club. Still, Xavi had a lot of faith that Dembele would come right eventually, a lot of faith. And what this meant was that Raphinha could only start on the right when Dembele was injured, which actually happened to be somewhat regularly. Even still, when Raphinha was playing on the right, he didn't really do enough to impress. And when games where he started, he almost never did enough for Xavi to let him finish the game. I counted that he only played a full 90 7 times in his first 2 seasons in La Liga. 60 million euros. 7 full 90 minutes. Almost every time that he started a match, he was taken off around the 60th minute or so for Ferran Torres, Dembele at times, but for the most part last season, Lamine Yamal. And while Xavi's decision to prioritize the development of Yamal was obviously the correct move for Barca, it left Raphinha in a precarious position. And that position was being on the left, the spot where he didn't really produce what Xavi wanted. In a recent interview with El País, he even came right out and spoke about his frustrations and how he was trying too hard with little to show for it. This isn't a criticism of Xavi. Subconsciously, I already knew that I was going to have to come off. I tried to do everything in 60 minutes and nothing worked out. And other times, when things did work out for me, I was taken off anyway. He'd shown glimpses of what he can do and that he was deserving of love from the Barcelona faithful on a few occasions. One of the best examples that comes to mind for me was his performance versus Manchester United in the Europa League knockout round playoffs first leg in 2023. Obviously, this match comes to mind because I am a Manchester United fan. I watch all Man United games. Of course, I watched this one. He was a massive threat, scored the equalizer to make it 2-2 and was possibly the best player on the pitch. However, fast forward to the end of 2023-24 and opinions, they just hadn't really seemed to change that much since he arrived. Good, but not good enough. The 2024 Euros shone a light on many players. One of them was Nico Williams. His chemistry with Yamal was just off the charts, and the standard question asked by reporters to either of them was, would you like to play with each other. And let me tell you something, Yamal is not moving to Bilbao, so they knew what they were really asking. That move didn't happen. Certain people should be counting their blessings because I know the Barcelona fans that wished it did have quietly been wiping their posting history over the past 10 weeks. Plus, even if Williams goes to Barcelona in 5 years' time and Lamine Yamal is still there and plays with him, Williams will be 27 and Yamal will be 22. So anyway, here's where things get really interesting. Out went Xavi, in came Hansi Flick. Hansi Flick, a very well-known and renowned manager in Europe, did some incredible things with Bayern Munich and was expected to bring that brand of football over with him to Barcelona. And he brought it. Positional freedom, high-intensity movement, pressing and defensive contributions, tactical flexibility. I wonder who would benefit the most from this type of system. Right now, this man is red hot. Everything seems to be working. 12 goals and 10 assists in 16 games in all competitions as of recording. Almost 4 key passes per 90. An XG of 0.63 goals per 90 and an actual scoring rate of 0.64 goals. So we know it's not some fluke. He's performing as expected. And so far, he's played a full 90 11 times out of 15. On paper, Raphinha's either started as a left winger or a central attacking midfielder / center forward for most games for Barca this season, but it doesn't really matter where his on paper starting point is because for the most part, he's played in both of those positions simultaneously in every game. Like I said, he's not the best dribbler on the planet. He's functional, but not the best, and you know, the stats actually back that up this season even more so than before because his dribbling stats have plummeted. This year, he's been in the 25th percentile for take-on attempts and the 34th percentile for successful take-ons, meaning he's only attempting about 3 take-ons per 90 as an attacking player. But like I said, it's not like that matters at all because that hasn't been his focus area. Instead, this season he's focused on athleticism and positioning, so he doesn't really need to beat his man with trickery. It also helps that he rarely miscontrols or loses it, 97th percentile, and of course that he's pretty much box to box, 97th percentile again for touches in his own defensive penalty area, and 82nd percentile in the attacking penalty area. When the pass or play isn't on the cards, he puts in a massive effort at the very least to keep the opponent guessing or honest, because he knows that when it is on, he'll be ready. Plus, I also have to give him massive credit for the fact that he doesn't hide from anything. He makes a mistake, no stress. He gets up and wins the ball back. That's how he is. He's honestly just the best kind of player to have, I think. In the El Clasico video I released last week, I spoke about how amazing of a job he did by drawing players like Eder Militao out of position for Barcelona's first goal. It's little movements like that that have become his trademark in the league this year, and clearly Militao, among others, are well aware. Just to round off some of the points that I've been making, last week I pointed towards a lot of his contributing plays and movements and really good things that he did. I want to do the same thing here, except with other matches and other examples, just to highlight how wonderful he is. A great example of the positional fluidity on display in Flick's Barcelona and Raphinha's willingness to partake came in Barca's match versus Espanyol. A straight ball over the top by Casado. Raphinha runs straight through Lewandowski's running channel, this time from the right side, gets to the ball first and lobs the keeper. He's not being given license to roam like that and make this kind of movement under Xavi. Going back to the Real Madrid match, we see another example of this. His only goal was a true showing of pace. He burns Lucas Vazquez in a foot race and cuts through the middle, coming from the left. He does the same for his assist in that game, only difference is that he sees Yamal and ensures he becomes the youngest scorer in El Clasico history. I think there was a bit of resentment from Raphinha towards Yamal in those early days, most likely just from Raphinha's side. Like I said, Xavi would hook him out around the 60th minute or so, but now they are as in sync as you possibly could be. It seems unfair that these guys have a guy like Raphinha on the left side and a guy like Lamine Yamal on the right side. Over and above their attacking contributions, you would think that they don't even have a second to rest based on how much they press. It's something that Kylian Mbappe could learn from, but that's a story for another day. Next, we have Valladolid. Here's his resting position just before the move that led to the initial goal, standing right on the shadow of the defender. Lewandowski comes towards the ball, leaving the center open, and Raphinha has free grass. He chests it down like it's nothing, gets in behind, finishes with a very, very cool left stroke. His hat-trick goal is the same. He's now operating as a cam during a fast break and just runs straight through all the way. And that's what Flick's system allows. If there's space, you can attack it. Just make sure that you're on the same wavelength as your teammates and you're not getting bundled up in each other's running lines, which I don't think these guys have a problem with so far. Against Villarreal, he's shown his character and leadership. A goal from the edge of the box seems somewhat routine, but this goal came in a moment when Barcelona looked like they may be about to be exposed and unraveled. Villarreal had already scored 2 offsides goals and looked like they were mounting a bit of a revival. This goal calmed the nerves. Raphinha puts his lifeblood into this game. His teammates have always known it, even though some of the fans may not choose to see it. It's one of the reasons why he was given the responsibility of being one of the club's captain going into this season, despite only being a Barca player for 2 years and fans constantly calling for him to get sold. And our final example comes from the match versus Bayern Munich. He was captain for the night too. 2 times he gets in behind Dayot Upamecano and Kim Min-jae, and both times he burns them. He scores both times. I still maintain that he's not the best at facing up to defenders, but he did just that for his second goal against Guerrero and Upamecano and finishes through Upamecano's legs. Right now, Raphinha is finishing games. He's lifting his teammates. He's running non-stop. He's scoring hat-tricks against Bayern Munich. I dreamed about nights like this since the moment I joined this club. He said that after the Bayern win. And from the looks of things, the dream is far, far from over.